Hey everybody, it's Angelo Villagomez. Thanks for joining our podcast. Welcome to Polar Bears and Flip Flops. It is February, and this is, I think, our fifth episode. Hey, who's that other guy?
This is me, Andrew Lewin. I am the co-host. I am glad to be here on Polar Bears and Flip Flops. This is
That
a fun episode to do.
that was my first attempt at an intro. It was terrible, but you know
That
what
was
they say:
great.
with practice comes excellence. How you doing, man? It's February. Can you believe it?
I'm doing well. We are still in a cold spell here
Yeah,
up in
same.
Canada, so
W-
it's interesting.
We've had one day above freezing since it snowed a week and a half ago,
Hmm.
and about half of the snow melted. But we still have
Hmm.
like, and it was they were calling it snowcrete, but this is just because it snowed and then it sleeted, and we had about 8 inches, which is about 20 centimeters of just ice that I could stand on. But now it's like a little bit more slushy and it's starting to melt, but it's going to be below freezing until next week. So it's just 2 solid weeks of cold weather.
Yeah,
But you know
gotta
what? I,
love a
I was
polar
talking with some
vortex.
friends. Do you guys get the spotted lanternflies up in Canada, or is that more further south?
I don't think I've ever heard of that, but
Okay, yeah.
maybe.
There's these Asian bugs that are like about the size of a quarter that are just freaking everywhere. The spotted lanternflies. If you look it
I'm
up,
gonna
you'll
look
know.
them up.
But some scientist friends were wondering if they would all die because it's so cold, and that could actually be a positive outcome of this cold snap.
Because they're
Before we
they're
get
an
into our
invasive
discussion,
species.
they're an invasive species, I think from China or somewhere in Southeast Asia,
Okay,
and
we don't get
they've
those.
they've been in New York. Yeah, no, I'd never seen them. I saw them for the first time 2 years ago, outside of DC, out in the countryside, and then this year or like last year, 2025, busting the city. Walk along the street, and there'd just be dozens of them, just like along the sidewalk. And you were like the authorities told us that we should squish them if we saw them, but there were dozens. You could just go out and squish dozens and dozens of these things forever.
Interesting.
But before we jump into our real conversation, how goes your fitness journey, my friend?
Not good. I got sick with a cold
Not
and a
good.
flu, and so that's been delayed for a little bit, and we've just had to deal with it for a little bit. So I went to a hockey tournament on the weekend and with my daughter, and to watch her play hockey,
Great.
and she was sick, and we're staying in the same room, and it was just a matter of time before I got it. So I haven't been had a cold like this in a while. So I finally got hit with the
That
bug, and
sucks.
I've been kind of in and out. For a while.
I had some travel back in November, and then when I got home late November, I was sick for about 2 weeks. But I've been okay so far this winter, other than
Good.
other than November.
How's your
But my
fitness going?
fitness is going good. I've continued to do cardio. Last week I said I hadn't lost any weight. I feel like I've lost a couple pounds. But last week was a slog for me, man, because I've been trying to do 50 minutes of cardio in the gym,
Yeah,
and like just last week, just it was, I don't know if you want to call it a wall or a plateau, but I just did not enjoy it. But powered through, and now
good for
I'm
you.
hopefully I'm on the other side of that, and we'll keep going for a couple more weeks and see how
I
far this
feel like that.
goes.
Don't they say it takes about 3 weeks to like get like 21 days to get into a habit? So maybe
Yeah,
that was
maybe.
like you hitting your plateau where you're like, ooh, you're at that cusp of either you're gonna make it a habit or you're not gonna make it a habit, and you've made it
Yeah,
a habit, brother. I respect what you've been able to do to push through that.
and it'll be making it a lifelong thing because I'm pretty good at doing
Absolutely.
these things for 2 months. We'll see if we can
Yeah.
do it for 3 months.
Well, as long as we do this podcast, we're going to continue to pressure because I like how you're
Yeah,
saying, "Hey, how's your fitness going?" And then I'm like
because you
failing
think
every
about it.
week, but I'm like, you know what? No, I got to do better because I got to answer to Angelo, and I don't want to answer to
Yeah,
Angelo like that.
and I'll admit the reason I even started this was because of you, because we were talking in December, and you're like, "Oh, I think I'm going to do some fitness,"
Yeah,
and we're both chunky boys.
yeah,
We like,
we're not
we
skinny.
enjoy a good steak.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
like sitting on a couch and eating those carbs. And you said you
hundred
were going to do
percent.
some fitness. I was like, I think I'll do some fitness. I also like chocolate and ice cream. So these these are
Oh
the other
man,
things that I like to
this is why we're the
stumble on.
same. This is why we're the
Yeah.
same. Yeah. Hey,
Um,
look, I've hit probably my highest weight in a long ever. over this past year, and so I still plan on getting it down and still plan on doing the fitness. It's just because you can't do it on a Monday doesn't like start on a Monday doesn't mean you can't figure it out. So I'm going to continue to slog it out, and I'm going to start walking on the treadmill, see how I feel if I get dizzy
Cool.
or anything like that, and see how you got to test it out when you get sick. There's no point in working out when you're sick. So
Great, man.
we'll see how it goes. But
And I noticed we have a couple of viewers
We
on
do.
YouTube, which is great.
wow,
Um,
one
this,
because one is me because I look at the
I
other
want to you. Well, one. But if you want, if you can leave your comments, and we will respond to the things that you say.
Absolutely. Come say
Feel
hi.
free to write them. So glad you joined us today. But we wanted to
Absolutely.
talk about a couple of articles today, or this week, that we saw. There was actually a whole bunch being written about area targets, and we've talked a little bit about area targets. But there was a Canada-specific story that came out in an online magazine called the Narwhal. Narwhal?
Narwhal.
Narwhal.
Yeah.
I always assumed it was Narwhal. Did you know that there? You know what a beluga is, right?
I do. Yes.
The white one. The Smithsonian in DC had a exhibit a couple years ago where did you know that sometimes a narwhal and a beluga will fall in love and have a baby, and it will produce a hybrid species animal, and it's called a narluga. And the Smithsonian in DC had a skeleton of one of these narlugas. But this magazine is the Narwhal, and they wrote about the author's name. The reporter is Ansley Cruikshank. I'm not sure who I've never met her before. But the title is Canada Failed to Protect 25% of Lands and Waters by 2025. Now you are a Canadian. What's up, dude? What happened?
It's not surprising. It's disappointing. Not surprising by any means. I find that we make these targets, and many governments do. We make these targets, and then we don't understand the intricacies that are involved in putting an MPA together. You can't just designate an MPA out of nowhere. As you know, Angelo, you need to bring in stakeholders. These things take a long time, and we got to a late start with doing MPAs. However, there was a time when Trudeau was prime minister. He brought up the protected area percentage of the area targets from like 1% to 15% within probably about 3 or 4 years. It's a lot. It's a huge amount. He expanded on the Endeavour hydrothermal vents MPA along BC. He added an Arctic MPA and a number of other Arctic MPAs. And so it looked like it was heading towards a good thing, and then we just stalled out. COVID hit. I think that stalled out a lot of things.
For your American listener right now, when did Trudeau come in?
He came in 2015, and then
he's a liberal, and then before him there was a conservative government.
Yeah, Prime Minister Harper, which was like very right-winged government that was very much on the. They were there for about 10 years, and they were very much involved in pipelines and expanding pipelines out west. So during their tenure, they actually changed the Fisheries Act, which is one of the parts of the Oceans Act that you can actually implement an MPA. Or there was an Oceans Act that's part of it, and they changed a lot, which stalled everything. They were not very. Our conservative government is not very environmentally friendly. They're very much oil and gas. They even wanted to change the Species at Risk Act. They didn't get a chance to, but they wanted to.
So for the the Trudeau years though, are you familiar with like what was the process that they were going through to identify these places? Because to go from 1% to 15% in like 5 years, four or 5 years, that's an incredible amount of. I mean, Canada's got a huge coastline.
Biggest, the largest.
Is it the largest?
Yeah, we have the largest coastline in the world.
I bet you a Canadian quarter, France is larger.
Nope.
No, all right. One Canadian quarter.
How do we look it up?
And Wikipedia will be the. Why don't you pull this up on a screen? I'm going to bet you one Canadian quarter that it's actually France, because France has French Polynesia.
I looked up what a Narluga looked like, but I don't know if that's right. There it is, right there. I think.
I don't know. Yeah, it's a real thing.
That looks like it. Um, although now I don't know what's AI and what's not AI, but let's just see. So
Yeah.
what's this? Who has? I'm pretty sure. I know. Actually, I'm 100%
World's
sure.
largest exclusive economic zone. Now, like there could be a
No, you
caveat
said
because I think.
No, hold on a sec. You said coastline.
Oh, coastline. Okay, I retract
Yeah,
my bet.
Canada has the
I
largest
yeah,
coastline
I
right
believe
there.
you could be right there because there's a lot of like bays and squiggles. All right, I we
Yeah,
were betting on the wrong thing, so I'm
like
not sure
by
who
a
won the quarter.
hundred thousand kilometers, dude.
Yeah.
And France isn't even
Okay.
close. Now,
Yeah, no, no,
who has the
because it's France's
largest?
islands.
Who has the
EEZ.
largest EZ? That would probably be different.
You know, if we were 10 years old in 1988, we wouldn't have been able to do this.
No, not at
Just
all. We would have just
there,
guessed and
there's
argued
France.
about it forever. Yeah, France.
Oh,
And the United
and you know
States is
what?
not far behind.
I would have assumed that Canada had a top five exclusive economic zone.
Hmm.
And I think the reason you don't is because you don't have any colonies the way that France, the United States, the United Kingdom do. But I just like
Could
I
be.
look at Canada and it looks huge. I
It
thought
is
it was.
huge. We're the
And what
second
is it?
largest
Top 10?
country, I believe.
Let's see what the top 10 exclusive economic zones are. Can you pull that up?
Uh,
I bet it's top 10. Is there a? I know that Wikipedia has a list, but you seem to prefer to do image searches, which is fine. That's your
I guess
personal
that's
style.
right. I never even thought about it because I was already doing the Narluga. Hold on, let me just move it over to the web. There's Wikipedia. Do you think it'll be out here?
Yeah, I've definitely used this resource a bunch of times to like look at
Okay.
EEZ sizes. Yeah, scroll way down. There's going to be a graph or a chart, a grid, an Excel spreadsheet. Scroll down. Like it's good. Go. Scroll.
Oh, it's
Coming
logged.
on.
Here.
All right,
That's the
numbers.
United
Oh,
Kingdom.
keep going. Almost there.
Here it is.
There.
Yeah. We're number 7.
Okay, number seven. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I knew it was big. I mean, that's pretty big. Out of 200
But the
countries.
thing I think also too is the Arctic. You know, there's been a lot of controversy around the Arctic in terms of
Hmm.
where the exclusive economic zone ends. I don't know if it necessarily goes 200 nautical miles because of all the other countries around it too. So I'm not too sure how that works. But
Cool.
yeah.
Well, to bring it back to the article in the Narwhal, uh, the writer says that the thing that could really help Canada get those numbers up are Indigenous protected areas, and you know we actually don't have those in the United States. That's a Canadian thing.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any idea of the scope or the scale of those? Because it sounds like there's a bunch that are being proposed, but the issue is like funding them and you know making sure that they're durable. And the article suggested that there might be some funding for the next 5 years, but what do you do in year six?
Well, that's it. I think what happens is there's 5 years of funding, but there's no funding beyond 5 years when they actually implement them. I think Canada has taken in the conservation circles that I know and I'm familiar with. Canada has taken a big push into um, uh, incorporating traditional ecological knowledge within the conservation realm and indigenous knowledge within the conservation realm. And so now a lot of places along BC coast, a lot of places along our northern coasts, and other coasts. I mean, we have indigenous populations throughout Canada. Those are probably where they're most concentrated, and
Hmm.
there's a lot of work that's going on along all of those. And so there is funding, but it's just like you said, there's only a certain amount of funding. It's not long term. It should be long term. It's not long term, so it's only 5 years, which is not like in our realm. It's not even it won't even last a
Hmm.
like it may last one term of a government depending
Right.
on when it's enacted. So indigenous nations are a little um
Yep.
are a little skeptical in terms of like
Yep.
will that because like let's be honest, like a liberal government will put it in, conservative government will take it away, and so
Right.
that's the back and forth. There's also a lot of government barriers across different scales. So there's like the federal, provincial, and even local. They have some problems. There was a huge argument that lasted probably about 10 years between the BC provincial government and the federal government DFO over
Mhm.
who has jurisdiction of putting out an MPA. So if I remember correctly, federal government, the Department of Fisheries and Oceans has legal authority over the seabed, but the British Columbia government, like the provincial government, has legal jurisdiction over the water column. So it's
Amazing.
like they were arguing about who owns what and who would own the natural resource development.
Yeah.
And so they were arguing they wouldn't put an MPA there because they couldn't figure that out. They had to figure that out. So that's like the stupidity of like not working together from federal and provincial. And what's interesting is BC is and I'm not calling out BC, they're very environmentally forward province. But unfortunately, that was going back and forth on who owns that area,
Yeah,
which
that
is
reminds me,
it's super disappointed.
back at home in Saipan, one government agency manages the coral reefs that are attached to the bottom, and a different local agency manages the fish as they swim through the coral reef.
Right.
And sometimes they're competing with one another, and that's
Yeah.
some of the difficulties of conservation management. I think what you just brought up is actually a good segue into the other article that we wanted to discuss, which is by
Mhm.
our good friend Rick McPherson. Now, do you
Love
remember the
Rick.
first time you met Rick?
That was in Newfoundland, I believe. Well,
Okay,
in person was in Newfoundland
in person,
at the
yeah.
International Marine Conservation Congress. He was an awesome guy. I haven't talked to him in a
Is
long time.
is that where I met you in person for the first time as well? I think it must have been. No. We met
we met at
in
Oceans
Miami.
Online. Yeah,
In Miami
Oceans
in
Online.
2013, I think.
Yeah,
So my
yeah.
first time meeting Rick was in 2009, and I came to San Francisco, and he was at the Coral Reef Alliance at the time, and we had been following each other's work online, as you know, a bunch of us seem to do. It seems how we meet a lot of our colleagues, and like as soon as we met, we were the best of friends immediately.
Yeah.
Like we were
Well, it's
we were
not
both
hard with him.
nerds.
He's super nice.
Yeah, great guy. Um, I wanted to start with, so he's got this article in the Revelator, and the Revelator is the magazine of CBD, right? The convention or something on biological diversity, the Center for Biological Diversity. They've actually done a lot of great work in my islands, and it's called "How to Transform 30 by 30 from a Political Slogan into an Ecological Reality." And you know, I actually wanted to start kind of lower down, like towards the end.
Yeah.
But
I just wanted
he's
to,
got this.
as we do that, I just wanted to shout out. I didn't realize Rick has been retired. Congratulations, Rick. That's
Well,
awesome.
he might be listening. Rick is really, really old. I don't know if you know this about him.
That's awful, dude.
Rick joined the AARP many. I'm joking. Rick's not that old. He's only a couple of years older than me. But you know, you reach a certain age and you like to joke with your friends that they're old.
Of course.
But I want to call attention to this one really great line that he had, and it's that there's one more reality we need to admit. There's a lot of effective ocean conservation already exists outside the boundaries of formal MPAs. And this, he was talking about OECMs, but I actually think it's a really powerful statement, because ocean conservation did not start 20 years ago. You know, ocean
No.
conservation for many communities goes back centuries and millennia, and you know, cultures have emerged that have strong connections to the ocean. I just felt that this entire article is kind of an acceptance of that theme. And what he does is he talks about 30 by 30 and where we are now. And he's talking about where we're going to be next year, or in the years after that, especially in the context of the high seas agreement that was just approved.
Yeah, it's an interesting thought process, because like you compare this article that he wrote and you look at what we just talked about in Canada, and you look at what's happening in the US right now. It just doesn't seem like from a MPA perspective, like a true MPA perspective, where there's no other, nothing else going on inside. So no extractive processes going outside or activities. We're not going to hit our targets by 2030, like in US and in Canada. Like, it's not going to happen unless we really start, Canada has to double for both land and water if they want to get where they want to go. The U.S. feels like it's going backwards in terms of where they
Yeah,
are
and
right now.
I could say, look, I have some inside knowledge. I know that rollbacks are coming.
Right.
We've
Exactly.
heard, like, I've heard from people in the know, and
Which
that, like,
sucks.
so the United States is at 26% right now,
Yeah.
um, and we don't know how far back these rollbacks are going to be, and we don't know where they're going to be. No, I
Right.
know where one of them is going to be.
Yeah, I kind of have a feeling where that is,
Yeah,
and but we don't want to speculate right now because until they formulate it, announce it, or try to change it. But yeah, I just feel like it's again we make these promises, these countries make these promises. It looks all great on paper, but actually putting them together and enforcing them is another thing. And then when they put them together, like, do you think there's going to be a rush of MPAs by 2030? Like, I feel like that's going to happen. And depending on who's in charge in Canada, it should be Carney, if everything, but he's got a
yep,
minority government, so it may not be. A liberal government tends to have that. But even then, like, when they put it together, I mentioned, you were saying when things went, like, back when we went from 1% to 15% in a few years, those MPAs had been talked about for a long time. They went
yeah,
through a process. It wasn't just as if they just said, "Oh yeah, we're going to just do here," and within 3 years, poof, it worked. They had just been stalled for a long time, so it was easy to come up with that. Like the article mentioned, there are a lot that are in place. A lot of them are indigenous led or indigenous involved, and so we can see that. I don't know how big those are going to be.
hmm
I don't care about the size at this point, like in terms of, like, should they be the biggest. I care more about the effectiveness, and I think that will be an interesting aspect when we look
yep,
forward. But my concern is by the time we get near 2020, like 2030, like 2028, 2029, there's going to be a big push to just get the 30% and not really worry about where it's going to be and what it's going to be like.
yep. And also, like, again, and Rick's article talks about this. Are they effectively managed? We talked about going from 1% to 15%. I wonder how many of those have management plans. And, like, it might be
Mm-hmm.
all of them. I don't know. Like, but in the U.S., we have 5 marine monuments, and 3 of them have management plans, and the other two. I don't expect the Trump administration to prioritize delivering management plans for these protected areas.
Right.
So it'll be 2029 before somebody picks that up again. And by that point, these protected areas will be 20 years old, um, and
Yeah. And
hopefully they still exist.
will they have like an evaluation plan too after 20? You would think they
Yeah.
would start looking. I would assume like the evaluations are usually like 3 to 5 years. They would do like an evaluation of how effective it is.
Yeah, I mean, that's dreaming, dude. I mean,
I mean, in
it's
theory,
like,
that should work.
yeah, like, even on the fisheries management side,
Yeah.
so, like, on my island, um, entire years go by where they don't count any fish, right? It's
Yeah.
dependent on, did they get a grant that year, and so, even fisheries management tends to have 10 to 20 times more money than MPA management. You know,
Yeah.
they don't get the data. So a lot of this is, these government managers are making decisions uh, with not enough information for them to make the decisions
True.
that they need to make. But yeah, no, like, I mean, God, like, the Mariana Trench Management Plan took 17 or 18 years to get in place, and, like, they want to look at it every 10 to 15 years. So, like, these things are on decadal scales. You could only wish that they would be reviewed every 5 years. And California is also doing an MPA. They're reassessing their MPAs every 10 years. So,
That's good.
I think, at least down here, no, it does not happen that often. It happens much more rarely, and it takes a long time, and it takes forever, and it takes a ton of money.
It takes a ton of money.
Um,
And I think that's it. And the other thing here, like, from what's not taken into account, is fisheries. A big thing
yeah,
they highlighted in the Narwhal article, they highlighted Newfoundland, where like a lot of fisheries, where fisheries is huge. A lot of the fisheries communities are concerned about the restrictions that it'll cause right off the bat. They don't feel like they're trusting the government, and they have a lot of trust issues with the government in that community, where they're saying, hey, like, this will be restrictive. How much of it's going to be restrictive? Is it going to prevent our fisheries? Like we know the cod stocks went down, destroyed that economy for a long time. Changed it. They want to start fishing again. Cod starting to come back, they think, although there's no real evidence. And so is it one of those things where can you convince the fishing community? Can you involve the fishing community right off the bat to ensure that you can get an MPA where they're happy with it, and that will cause some compromise? Because like if you think about it, I remember when I did my master's, part of my master's was funded by WWF Canada on the East Coast, and we were looking at putting a network of marine protected areas along the East Coast, like the Atlantic, from Newfoundland all the way down to the tip of Nova Scotia to the border. And they never included, or my understanding is they never included the fisheries and the fisheries communities. And when they actually had like a network, they put it through like MarkSand, which is like a network selection tool, a great tool. They put all the data in there. They put in socioeconomic regions and stuff like that, but they never put in where the fishermen wanted to fish or where they do fish. Not that necessarily they would tell them, but when they put in and when they showed them the maps, and even though there was like 100 different models of where you can put them, they changed them around. They were like, nope, these are in our fishing zones. We're not going to approve them. And they had to start all over again. You've got to include all the different stakeholders. If you don't, your MPA is not going to work. Whether you put it through anyway and you designate it, you can't force that if people are not going to abide by it.
So speaking of not working, and we talked about just bailing kind of early today.
No problem.
I have to go to a thing.
You have a party to go to. You got to go celebrate.
I got a thing. But Rick in his article also talks about, what if 30 by 30 ends up being a failure? And he writes, so what do we say out loud in 2031 if the dashboard isn't green? And what he means is like 30 by 30 didn't work. He says, it says at the bottom, there you go. Something like this. We'll say something like this. 30 by 30 was the minimum milestone that got the world moving. We didn't hit the deadline, but we finally stopped pretending that protected means safe. From here on, our benchmark is no longer the size of the map, but the health of the life within it. And then he continues, missing a conservation deadline is a gut punch, especially with everything at stake right now. But hollowing out the definition of protection is a catastrophe. By refusing to settle for accounting tricks, we ensure that 30 by 30 isn't just a failed slogan. It becomes the beginning of a more honest, more mature, and more durable relationship with the living planet. And so if you've listened this far, please give both of these articles a read. I think they're really interesting. They were not written, the authors kind of wrote them at the same time about similar topics. But one is about the failure of 25 by 25 in Canada. And then Rick's article is about how do we get this right moving forward. So thanks, man.
Well, thank you. I'm gonna put these in the comments so that people. I'm not sure if it works. Yeah, they'll work. I'm gonna put these articles in the comments so that you can read them, and we could all enjoy them for each other, so that they can get access to them because they belong. But
thanks everybody, and we'll be back. We'll be back next week, 5 o'clock on Thursday. Please join us. We have no idea what we're going to talk about. We kind of figure that out depending on how the week goes and what we're reading.
What news pops up
on social media.
We'll talk about the Super Bowl at least when the Patriots lose.
Sorry, we'll see.
Hey, I don't know who I want to win. I don't know if I want the Patriots to win. I don't know if I want the Seahawks to win. So
I just want both teams to have fun.
Both teams to have fun, and I'm going to eat a lot of food. I'm definitely going to have to hop on a treadmill after next week. So, but yeah, thank you very much, Angelo. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. We will talk to you soon, and happy conservation.
Thanks, everybody.